commemorating Government House on a 50-cent bus to dissolve the Parliament.
History shows we are well and truly the underdog. Tonight, Queenslanders have voted for hope over fear.
Donald Trump will become the 47th President of the United States.
He will be the first president since Grover Cleveland in the 19th century to serve 2 non-consecutive terms.
There was much rhetoric, but no new detail about the policy he's gambling his political future on: nuclear energy.
We will talk more about the economic and environmental benefit to our country as a result of our plan. We will answer people's questions, we will alleviate concerns.
Hug it out, guys. Hug it out. It's Christmas.
There you go. That's it. Was that the most...
Go on, hug with gusto.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the AuspolChats Podcast, the show where we try to make sense of the madness that is Australian politics and a little bit of global politics this time. My name is Jack, I'm Luke, and we are going to be catching up on a lot of stuff because as of May last year, there's a lot of stuff that we have. Yeah, right, they're doing this thing again. So, you know, because there was a big break last time, 2022 and 2023, and there was a big break this time, 23 to 24. So our 2 loving friends, Aaron and Courtney, have died. It's just, unfortunately, rip in peace to all of them. So, you know, well, we've got a lot to talk about, and there's only so much that we can get through in an hour. So obviously, the big hot button, well, red button issue, quite literally red button issue, is that Donald Trump recently was elected again as the United States president. So, I mean, I guess like it's going to be like it was a result that definitely shocked me. I wasn't expecting him to get reelected, but I guess like what are your thoughts about how Donald Trump was able to get reelected again? Well, despite everything, I know your thoughts because right before we started filming, you're like, I was so excited when he got rid of Roe v. Wade. You said this but I snapped it live. Oh, of course. I mean, look, we did our own electoral college prediction, and we both predicted Harris. I mean, like, I can't remember the numbers, but we didn't predict that she was going to win by a lot when we did our college prediction. And even I remember when I made it at the time, I was looking at these things and going, okay, well, if she doesn't win Pennsylvania, she doesn't win. If she doesn't, if she loses one of these states that are flipping on a knife edge, she's lost. Whereas Trump only needs probably spit up one, and he's in. He's in again. I can't say I was shocked. I was shocked that she lost the popular vote. Yes, definitely. But I mean, not shocked at all that Trump. Yeah, I definitely was also shocked by the loss of the popular vote, as well as Trump both getting the House and the Senate. He got both of those, and you also have the fact that Kamala also performed very poorly even in blue states. So even in blue states where you would think that she would a surefire, I mean, yes, she still won the blue states, but it wasn't quite as definitive as you'd probably want to expect a Democratic candidate would be, especially one of Kamala's, procedure. But I think what was the turning point, I think, for a lot of Americans, a lot of people say that it was the assassination attempt on Trump's wife that, locked him in to win the election. It was the change in candidate from Joe Biden to Kamala Harris. Or, do you think if Joe Biden was still in, do you reckon the results would have been worse, or do you reckon he might have performed a bit better? Or
It's tough to say because while obviously a lot, like if you take your cap off, and obviously most people, I know you and I wanted Harris to win. If we take our caps off and look at it objectively, then I don't think that you can, like, you just have to say that she underperformed, that she performed, even bias aside, she performed a lot worse than anybody was expecting. So with the way Biden stumbled and his age was shown, I think that, yes, somehow it would have been worse. I don't think it would have been a massive difference. I mean, say she, I can't remember the exact number, but say she lost by like 60 electoral votes, or maybe he would have lost by 80. I don't think it would have been, like when Ronald Reagan won the White House and the entire country was red. If Joe Biden was in, the map wouldn't have been red again. I could have finished that, they wouldn't have had any more success because a lot of people were becoming frustrated with his administration. So you can't say that if Biden was there, he would have won.
Good. I think it was also too, like, I just found it really interesting how despite, obviously in 2016, Trump was, not entirely unknown. Obviously, he's a celebrity and all of that stuff. He's a big business mogul and whatnot. So a lot of people kind of sort of expected what he was going to be like as a president. But when he actually was in office from 2016 to 2020, there was a lot of chaos, with a lot of very interesting and very wild moments. And then even the people that worked with him were campaigning against him this time around too. So, and then you also had a lot of people who are working, not necessarily politicians, but just working for him on the inside, saying, how chaotic it was, how he had a lack of understanding of just the basics about how government worked. But, people still looked at all of this, like the voters still looked at, him trying to insurrect the Capitol on January 6th in 2021. Or his performance on the global stage, the whole Rocket Man thing, and his weird admiration of plutocrats and autocrats like, Vladimir Putin. They looked at all of that and they thought, I want round two of that. I want round two. So it's just like, I still can't believe there was that quote on the ABC from, I think it wasn't David Spears, but it was one of the Insiders programs on the ABC. And basically, a lot of people were talking about the felt economy. So even though the economy was doing fairly well under Biden and Harris and their administration and all the OECD countries that done, like America has outperformed a lot of OECD countries in terms of the economy, and still people were feeling the brunt of the cost of living crisis that's going globally in their pockets, and they were still feeling that. Didn't matter how many statistical figures you were going to show people about, how well the economy was performing, it was still, a feeling that they had that they weren't doing better. And that was that famous quote that Trump said at the Madison Square Garden thing is like, do you feel better off now than you did 4 years ago? That a lot of people said no. So would you think that was also partially part of his victory or the cost of living?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I said to you previously, just between ourselves, is that's where he won. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? But because obviously your original question was, do I think that there was a turning point? Did the Democrats lose the election? I don't think they ever were winning it to begin with. I think that there was never really a turning point where you could say that's where they lost the election. Do you think there was a turning? Do you think there was a single moment in the race where, because obviously we predicted Harris and we thought she was going to win, but like looking back on the election, casting an eye over it from even the start of Biden's administration, going from, okay, so here we are in 2020, there's going to be an election in 2024. If you take that whole time, do you reckon there was a single point or they were always destined to lose?
I think, and this is kind of like, again, this is coming from someone like me who has only really followed US politics right in the last, just this year, when the election was kind of coming around. And I think that, I don't think there was necessarily one particular turning point. A lot of people thought the assassination attempt was the turning point, but I think it was also just a lot of things as well. I think that people were, because Biden was in terms of health-wise, even just looking back at the older debates between him and Trump, he was a lot more sharp. He was a lot more, superficially, he looked and sounded better than he did when he did the first debate with Trump that time. And I think that might have been, I don't think there was necessarily one particular point that the Democrats completely lost the election, but I definitely think that there were multiple points. And I think that one of them was his debate performance against Donald Trump. Yeah. And, how awful, to be frank, he looked awful, he sounded awful. And, it should have been a debate that should have been as easygoing as ever, because Trump's not necessarily a difficult person to debate, but he just didn't look very good. And I think a lot of Democrats were going, no, we got to get this guy out, or we're not winning the election. And
that's what you say, because you said that you've only really started watching it carefully on him last year or so. Well, when he was elected and he came to power, he said that I will be a transitionary candidate. He said, I will be a one-term president, I'll step aside, and then I'll let new leadership come to power. He did too. But somewhere along the line, he thought, I beat him once, I can do it again. And the last 4 years have been about, this is the battle to save American democracy. It's if you don't vote us, he wins. And I think I think maybe Biden got caught up in a bit of grandeur, and he's gone like, hey, it's if he wins, America falls. I've beat him once, I can beat him again. I have to do it for the country. But then it's funny, I saw that and I turn around and, he was shaking his hand in the White House and they were talking with their old golf buddy. So, but yeah, I do think that him not stepping aside and digging his heels in for so long, because she did, look, looking back now, I don't think that she was the right candidate, but you not letting her be her own candidate in her own right, like, that really, really screwed her over, because it was all of a sudden she was the candidate. And that was 100 days out from the election. It wasn't a very long time. And all of a sudden it was the candidate. And, Nancy Pelosi, one of the people who was, and that's what the Democratic Party really went wrong. They couldn't agree on whether Biden should run again. Pelosi was one of the people that wanted to get him out. And she wanted to have a primary. She wanted to have a contest for the nomination. Yeah. But you've got that time pressure now. You're 100 days out from the election. You're going to waste time campaigning and have a primary. But in the end, if they had had a primary, would they have had a stronger candidate? Yeah. And I think a lot of the time as well that I think you're right, that time limit definitely was a major factor in them just kind of steamrolling her in there. And to be fair, I think that was the only option that they had in terms of just being less than 100 days out from the election. I think that was the only thing they could have done. If they had the contest of ideas, if they had if they had to get all the delegates, they still had to get all the delegates in anyway to formally announce her as the presidential candidate. But still, it could have made the process a lot longer. It could have also affected their ability to really build the profile of whoever was going to win that contest of ideas. So whether it's going to be, because wouldn't Bernie or I don't know too many other Democrats other than who would have been potentially part of that contest of ideas if they even had one. Well, a lot of people obviously are now starting to predict the 2028 front row. Gavin Newsom is a name that comes up a lot. He's very popular in California, and in term limits, he can't run for California governor in 2028. So there's a lot of conjecture about whether he'll nominate himself the Democratic nominee in that time. He said that if there was a primary, I won't run because I don't want to be the president. I'm committed to California. I think Bernie Sanders, he himself said previously that if Biden was to step out, he was too old, he wouldn't do it himself. One person I do like, and I can't remember which state she's governor of, is Gretchen Whitmer, Gretchen whatever her name. Yeah. She's a very strong campaigner, and a lot of people wanted her to be the VP nomination. But, it's a sad world where a lot of people said, well, the American public aren't ready for a two-woman ticket. Yeah, we haven't even had one woman president. We can't have two men on the ticket. That's true. So she probably, in an ideal world, would have been the VP. But I think that she would have been a stronger nominee than Harris. You've got Mark Kelly in Arizona. He's maybe a shy campaigner, but he's a good policy maker. I don't know. And that's the problem with the Democratic Party. They don't have strong leadership. Whereas the Republican Party has the opposite issue, where it's the Trump game and no one else. He's ripped that party in two. completely. He's ripped the party in two. You're either for Trump or against Trump. That's it. And it's no longer. I mean, they didn't even have a contest of ideas between who they were going to pick between the candidates, and they picked Donald Trump unanimously. So they still did their primaries. Yeah. Realistically, nobody ever had a chance. That's true. Once Trump was like, I'm running again, nobody had a chance. Yeah, because there was Ron DeSantis and then Nikki Haley, and then she kept in the race for a little bit longer than Ron, but Ron backed out, and then also Nikki backed out as well. So I just think, where the Republican Party goes now is going to be a completely different question. But I think, obviously there's a lot of people saying that the Democratic Party has a lot of soul searching to do. Yeah, absolutely not. But I think, and this is going to sound a bit, this is going to sound a little bit extreme. I reckon that the people who, hang on, I'm going to phrase it in a way that's not going to be incredibly divisive. I think the American people have a lot of soul searching to do in terms of the way that they voted. Because they looked at, and I don't know how many people would have actively voted for Trump, knowing all of the horrible stuff he did
previously and now. I guess it's a bit of an extreme thing for me to say because, the voters are always right at the end of the day and democracy. But
At the same time, he increased his share amongst minority. He did. But how do I say this in a way where it doesn't sound like I'm calling the American people stupid? Because in Australia, obviously, we learn about government at a young age. I mean, obviously, we don't have civics classes, but in primary school and in elements of high school, we learn about government. We learn about the structure. We learn about separation of powers. We learn, in a general sense, what the Constitution is. It's not like some in depth that, we understand why the Prime Minister can't be the minister of everything. We understand why the church isn't involved in the government. We have the Australian Electoral Commission. We have state electoral commissions, whereas obviously they don't exist in America. It's,
in fact, a lot of it, even the members of political parties are running those elections. I mean, not running, but on the board of election committees as well. So which is completely an unheard concept in Australia.
Some of their electoral maps where, we'll put it in an Australian context. It's like, imagine if your division that you were in, and then there was a really, really thin line, and then all of a sudden the divisions in Rabina where I live.
Yeah.
And it's like that, those electoral boundaries exist to give certain candidates the maximum benefit. Whereas you wouldn't dream of a thing like that happening in Australia. And I don't think the people would allow it. If someone tried to, say, Albo tomorrow decided to wake up and go, okay, well, I'm going to redraw all the electoral divisions. See, it would be outcry.
Yeah,
it wouldn't happen. But in America, people see gerrymandering as a legitimate issue, but there's no means to fix it. There's no means of campaigning. Yes, you can campaign all you like and raise funds to get rid of gerrymandering, but when you've got all these, super PACs as well, or campaign reform, like that's another thing. There's no real regulation over the way elections and campaigns are conducted in America. As that's why you get people, when Trump campaigned and said that Puerto Rico was a garbage island with garbage people, that wouldn't fly where we live. The Electoral Commission would go, actually, Puerto Rico isn't a garbage island. They don't have people. Yeah. He would be, a candidate did that would be condemned. Pauline Hanson and, folks like Fraser Anning have said things like that and have rightfully been censured and condemned.
I feel like this Senator Babette recently, and the Ralph Babette using some very awful language on Twitter. So obviously I can't go into what he said, but I'm not saying rightfully for it, but yeah.
I'm losing track of my point, but I think that's, it's not necessarily the American people have a lot of soul searching to do. It's the American people are just really uneducated about how the government works. If you had a perspective of, campaign reform, finance reform, electoral commissions, you'd go, well, hang on. We're getting the shit end of the stick here. People thinking there's no boundaries of what these people can really accomplish in getting themselves elected and holding power.
And then it's tough. And then you've also got the influence of, Elon Musk and then X as well, and then misinformation, disinformation, and all of these other things as well also entering the American. And in fact, the fact itself that America as well is a very divided nation anyway, and that I don't think it's going to get any better. In fact, it's probably going to get a lot worse, even from what it once was before. It's going to get a lot worse now. Especially, and I think in America, it's not a contest of ideas. It's not a contest between two political parties. It's now become a contest of two different realities, entirely. So,
and it's like, the American people are very proud that they're free and they're proud of their constitution.
Yeah,
but realist and they're talking about dismantling the Department of Education now. How many Americans that believe that January 6th was a positive event, standing up against government tyranny? How many of them would really realize that that is just an abhorrent violation of the Constitution? Yes, everything that their founding fathers stand against. That's just, maybe that's my hot take. I don't know. I think it's, and again, that's the other thing too. Donald Trump was at the forefront of that, January 6 stuff. He waited for so long after people already entered the building for him to, tweet out something or to do a video at the end to try and stop the violence and to stop the... And it's just, even Mike Pence, who was, trying to certify the election, people were asking, telling him to be hanged and not nullified now. Yeah, he's just completely
oh God, like he was just trying to do his job to try and, to verify the slate electors to get the election through. And it's just, I mean, none of his recent cabinet picks either have been, have served him previously either. So they're all completely new picks. Including, you've got Elon and then Matt Gaetz. Well, Matt Gaetz recently bowed out anyway. So that's shocking to me. Like, and obviously, I remember when Trump was first elected, I think I was like, oh, okay, I don't think he's going to be a very good president. And I mean, I look back on his first administration, I think, okay, well, he wasn't great. There was a lot of horrible stuff that he did during that. Like, he was just objectively not a good policymaker. I mean, obviously, there were things like Roe v. Wade and there were legitimate issues of rights. But if you just look back and just go, okay, well, he didn't realistically what did America accomplish during that time? And what did he do for the people? But I look at his cabinet now and I just think, oh my God, this is going to be interesting. It is, well, you've got on the RFK, like you had an alleged, well, obviously he's bad at now. Yeah, but you nominated an alleged sex predator that was being investigated by the Justice Department to run the Justice Department. Yep. And what I also think is by Mike Johnson, I think Mike Johnson is a hack. I think he is just a shell. He's just a shell for Trump and Gaetz and more extreme elements in the party. Yeah. But him refusing to, no, technically the investigation ended because Gaetz resigned and that ends the investigation. But him refusing to release that ethics investigation into Gaetz is just a terrible betrayal to the American people. No, absolutely. That's someone who was nominated to be the Attorney General. Basically, their lawyer. Their country's what? Yeah. That's something that people need to know. That is a terrible betrayal of the American people's trust. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it kind of reminds me, definitely not the same thing, but I remember when Christian Porter back in the day, he was found out having blind trust, and we weren't able to find out the details about who was donating to him, because I think it was due to a couple of different legal battles that he was experiencing over like defamation cases for the ABC and whatnot. So obviously, to try and fund those legal battles, he went to a blind trust. And, it was on his expression of interest or on his pecuniary interest, and it said it was a blind trust, and we actually couldn't tell what was in the blind trust. We had no idea because of the legality of those arrangements. It can't be revealed. And this was the Attorney General at one point, just blindly accepting money from people like in a blind trust that couldn't reveal in a system where you're supposed to be able to look at it and go, okay, I know who's donating money to these candidates. And yeah, I thought that was insane back then. Yeah. But then in America, I'm crying that will for him to be sacked. Yeah. And then, but I just think, but I just thought that couldn't get any worse than that. But America always has to one up us. And then you just have someone like Matt Gaetz, and then you've also got Dr. Oz as well. Yeah, that's interesting. Being, what was it, FDC? Oh, I know he's running Medicaid. Medicaid, yeah, like another thing, part of it is, yeah. Yeah, so it's just absolutely wild. But again, just final thoughts on the whole election in general. Where do you think America goes from here? What will happen on, obviously they've got the peaceful transfer of power happening now. And I mean, I think I said this to you, but I guess I didn't know you back then. Maybe I said it to somebody. But actually, no, this was the most recent election. In 2020, I said to you, no matter what happens at the 2024 election, 2028 will be a fresh slate of leadership. Say it's J.D. Vance up against Gavin Newsom. It's probably going to be the closest election in a long time where the candidates aren't 60, 70, 80. And I think that maybe that's, assuming, World War III doesn't happen under this administration, maybe that's the reset that America needs, a fresh perspective, a younger perspective. Maybe that's where they go from, the Democratic Party now has, I'm trying to wrap this up really quick, the Democratic Party has 4 years now to actually produce policy. They actually have to campaign, and it's not about, you have to vote for us, otherwise Trump won't get in. It's, they have to appeal to the working class and general folks that they're looking out for, that they want to serve them. I mean, you got to keep us in power because he's in power. That's where they went wrong. Harris could have been the greatest nominee of all time. That she still got lost because people think
the Democratic Party's event.
Yeah, and I guess look, to kind of clarify what my inflammatory statement was earlier about, the American people need to do soul searching in general. No, I think it's just that I think there are definitely people who I'm more directing that at people who are like MAGA people, and who will vote for Donald Trump no matter what he does. I was thinking about the people that didn't vote for her because she was willing. You're talking about the large Arab communities voting for Trump. You're talking about the people who are voting for Jill Stein. You're talking, or even just the people in general who just genuinely just getting having a really, really rough deal in life, and they're just trying to make ends meet.
Now, I need to recant my statement. That sounds like I'm calling Arab Americans and Jill Stein voters extremists. Well, I have to say, that's not what I was trying to say, but I haven't yet. But it's quite back.
Look, to be fair, the American election in its entirety has been very inflammatory. So I think their opinion's been
what I think I mean is, it's the American people need to do soul searching in the quality of the leadership that they produce.
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying. And I'm going to stick with that before I say something accidentally inflammatory.
We also had the state election as well recently. So we had the battle between Stephen Miles and David Christoforty, and we're going to disagree. I think we're going to disagree. Usually on the podcast, it's usually one big, agreeing fest. But I think this will be the one ability to disagree. In terms of the Queensland election results, obviously we knew that it was never going to be an easy battle for Labor. It was always going to be an uphill battle for them. And I think that, despite the last minute change in leader, or not last minute, but 18 months from, it's 10 months from Anastasia Palaszczuk. I think that it was definitely still an interesting election, even after the last minute swing in the polls. So what do you think? Generally, what
I'm just going to go straight out with what you're going to disagree with. Yeah, what I'm going to say is, I think that the fact that the Liberals won by the amount that they did, they criminally underperformed. Should have won by a lance. It should have been like when Campbell Newman was voted out. When Anastasia beat Newman, it should have been that kind of landslide. But let's just say Labor will reduce to 10 seats. It would have been absolutely shocking. And here's how you're going to disagree with.
Yes.
I think that if Anastasia Palaszczuk was still the leader, she would have won that election.
She would have won the election, you reckon? I reckon, irrespective of who's going to lead the Labor Party, it wasn't going to matter. They were still going to lose. I still reckon. But obviously, we had that last minute switch up in the last couple of weeks before people went to the polls, or before pre-polling happened. Obviously, the issue of abortion came up as well. So, and I think that's what swayed a lot of people. In fact, I think if the election went on, the campaign went on for just a little bit longer, we probably be seeing a minority government.
We've got another month of Stephen Miles, minority government on Parliament.
Yeah,
and that's what I bet on. I had a bet on for a Liberal minority or on Parliament. Did come true. I thought it was going to come true for a second. I listened to coverage, but no, looking cool. But it was an interesting campaign because to me, I look at that campaign. I don't think Queensland were impressed by David Christoforty.
No,
I think Queensland had become tired of Labor, and Stephen Miles didn't do enough to convince them. Because when you look, Queensland doesn't change governments very often, but when Queensland swings big. There is always, when the government changes hands, there is a massive changing of seats. It's always when a government comes to power, they start in an incredible majority. And I think it's very damn for David Christoforty that he slipped Queensland, but not massive.
I will say, just as a conflict of interest, I did mention this conflict of interest before, but I was a member of the Liberal Party, not anymore.
No, that's good though, because it's, obviously I have, more left-wing views, you have conservative views. I think that's good. And that's, we're going to disagree here. We're going to talk about it. I've got to make politics good.
I can probably say this then, because I've since left the party. But I remember David saying in a lot of party meetings and a lot of different local branch meetings, and then also to the general party faithful, he was saying that he'd got a whole bunch of money in the bank. He had over $1 million worth of campaign funds, and then he said, this was the same amount of money that Campbell Newman had when that election wipeout was happening. So obviously there was a feeling within the party that he was going to have that huge election wipeout, and obviously that didn't come to fruition. I mean, you had Anthony Green on the ABC saying that eventually, not getting it wrong per se, but obviously there was that small chance that they would have to form a minority government, and they'd have to negotiate with the crossbench to be able to get into a majority position. So, that didn't happen, obviously, but obviously there was that very strong feeling that, yes, we're going to get that massive sweep like Campbell Newman did, and it's going to be, just like the Newman years, and they're going to be just as popular as they were before. But obviously, as you said, the more that they saw Stephen and the more that they saw David, that started to switch, especially in those debates. I reckon Miles held those debates a lot better than David did. Yeah, which was surprising because Miles kind of looked a little bit like a nervous kind of speaker.
He wasn't it? Yeah, you looked at him and you went, oh, okay, these two, he doesn't have the charm, he doesn't have the congeniality. No, respectably. No, but in those debates, he held really strong. He, especially on the issues of abortion as well, he was definitely like, what was your position on abortion? What was your party's vote on abortion? He was like really absolutely hammering it on all of those things, which is not usually something that you see in politics, that direct combativeness. I mean, there was some of that with Albo and Morrison back in the day. Back in 2022, there was a little bit of combativeness, but this was definitely he was going after it, attacking his view. This was blood sport. Like, this was the closest you can get to blood sport, without it, without them actually getting in the ring and fighting each other. So what interested me though is, and I'd kind of never really seen this in an Australian context, Christopher he was visibly annoyed. He was getting frustrated. He was everywhere he went, someone would ask him about abortion. And someone would ask, say he's at a press conference, say he was with the candidate for, and this is off the top of my head, not a real story, candidate for the Bundaberg. And the candidate for Bundaberg was asked an abortion question. It was, okay, quickly let them fumble through that and get him out of the way and say that we've clarified our position time and time again. He was so frustrated about the issue of abortion. And I understand it, because his response was, my team backs it. We backed it. We won't call a conscience vote because we back it. We believe it. Well, he himself, the Deputy Premier, voted against it. I think, and obviously there's a couple of new faces in the cabinet, but I think a damn 80% of the current cabinet voted against abortion when it went to a vote. It was an overwhelming vote against abortion. You can't come out to the people of Queensland and say, we're going to protect your rights, but we did vote against you to have them in the first place. Yeah, that does instill a lot of confidence. No, but then also too, I think he was also thinking about, which is not the right way to think about it as well. I think it's definitely you should. I mean, I'm absolutely in favour of abortion and women's bodily autonomy. That's extremely important, and I think I think that David was taking a more political move and not necessarily a moral one. Yeah. He was definitely thinking about, if I go, for abortion, if I say, yes, I'm for abortion, then he would have a leadership challenge, or, his party would be in disrepute. But even if he said for abortion, that galvanises Katter. It brings his private members building. Then Christopher Lee has to call a conscious vote, and he becomes the premier that criminalised abortion. Yeah, but then also too, if there's one person on the earth that I think Dan Christopher Lee wants to strangle more than anyone, was Robbie Katter. Yeah, because Robbie Katter was the one that changed the momentum of the election. Yeah, and I just think that's obviously, whether or not Robbie Katter, actually wanted to bring it up because he believes in the whole, pro-life still. I think he does. He's genuinely, but I think it was more trying to have a dig at the Liberal Party, anyway, trying to make sure they're a bit more of a general power play, because I think there were some grievances between the Katter Party and the Liberal Party in Queensland anyway. So I think those issues kind of came to the forefront of them, and then they just found the weak spot, and then Labor was able to, because originally Labor didn't have too much of a wedge in the election campaign, other than David's character, as well as obviously that private company that David ran for a little while, the consulting firm that had, which I still think is the weirdest thing, this whole consulting firm, but I still find it weird. I know some people weren't too bothered by it, but I still find it weird how that got, I think it did get government funding. Yeah, I think it got government funding, and there was more spent on training than the actual operation of the business. Yeah, but strike. Yeah, even though David comes out and says there's been no findings against me. Yeah, there's been no Some that weird little blemish on the record. Yeah, you know, you can't say it's corruption because if they say there's nothing, there's nothing against. Yeah, exactly. There's any money or anything like that. Yeah. It's just, but that was the only other kind of wedge that they had because obviously, you know, the Labor Party have been in the government for the past 10 years, so it's not like they can blame, you know, it's not like they're in the opposition and they can blame the government and whatnot. Yes, they have been the government. I mean, they've obviously tried to bring out the ghosts of Campbell Newman's past. Yeah. Obviously, I mean, and that's been a thing for the whole campaign. That's Labor's one main wedge is like, what's going to happen if, you know, David comes in? Is he going to be the same as Campbell Newman? We're going to start seeing all these cuts and, you know, because that's what happened last time they were in power. So I think that was also another scared campaign that they were running as well. So, but I mean, like, I look at the way that the LNP campaigned, and it was, and I'm sure we'll get into this. This is a different discussion, but you use crime crisis. Yeah, no, it was a dull crime at dull time. Yeah, that was their whole message throughout the campaign. Big billboards everywhere. The only other policy that really came to mind was, oh, Labor's doing 50-cent public transport. We're going to do that too. I can't remember the other thing that they announced, but Labor announced something. The LNP, every time that you thought they would get a bit of ground, kind of the LNP just said, oh yeah, we'll continue that policy when we're elected. But like, I look at myself and I think that, you know, for that election, even though let's assume that I didn't live in an incredibly safe Liberal seat, that I would be a voter that the LNP need to target. At a federal level, unless, you know, barring some outrageous event, I'd always vote like, yes. But at a state level, where the policies affect me directly a hell of a lot more than federal policies, I will vote for the best person I think represents my community. Not who I think, oh, well, if I vote for Ros Bates, David Christopher, who's going to end up the Premier, I'm going to vote the person I think, because I'm in the Mudgee Borough electorate, I'm going to vote for the best person I think would represent Mudgee Borough. And you know, there's probably people think, oh, you know, he's election winning, wouldn't do that. But if I was early, you know, Herman Borster was the Liberal candidate there. He was a Division 11 councillor, and he was incredible. If I lived in Burleigh, I would have voted for Herman Borster because I would have thought that he made the best representative for me as a person who lives in Burleigh. But I look at that and I think, yeah, the LNP should be targeted someone like me because, you know, I'm going to vote for the person I think best represents the community, you know, does a good job for Queensland. Yeah, we've had, how many terms did they have? 3 or 4? Yeah, they were in power for a very long time. Yeah, and you're looking at people who want it. You target people who are tired of the incumbent, but it was just a dull time, Yeah, that's the slogan. Where was the policy platform? What are you going to deliver for Queensland? Yeah, I mean, 3 days in, he's cut some hydroelectric scale. Yeah. You know, we want to be smart with the money. We want to save you all the, you know, there was supposed to be $40 billion, you know, it was supposed to be this money, Labor, it's $40 billion. Yeah. Like, think about the jobs that were created and I can't remember where, I think it's Buttermere, where the hell it was. But think about what it would have done for that town if that scheme was in place. I do think, you know, they Labor campaign, they said Christopher Lewis did it with the next year, he's stuck all these things, and it took him 3 days to cut some. Yeah, like that's insane. There was the Truth Telling Commission that they cut first. The Truth Telling Commission, it was the Truth Telling Commission they cut first, which is, I think, it's just such a stupid thing, especially after, I mean, and I know a lot of people, and I really do not mean to bring up the sore wound that is the voice. I really do not mean to bring that up, but I think a lot of people saw that as kind of like a, because I remember David, he was staunchly against the voice, and then the first thing that he cut was this Truth Telling Commission, and I think that he was emboldened by that no vote to be able to do that. Yeah. And I just think it's exactly like you said. I think it's just really not funny. It's not funny, but Labor did say, yes, they're going to cut, and they said, no, we're not going to cut, we're not Campbell Newman. He even actually, to David's somewhat credit, he did directly admit the wrongs of the past, very broadly, but he was in an on-street interview, and he was like, look, mate, I understand your grievances with Campbell Newman. Like, you know, I don't want to recreate that. I don't want to be a part of that. You know, I want to do things differently. You know, we've learned those are mistakes, and we're going to learn from them. And straight off the bat, even, you know, even before, he's like, you know, the shadow cabinet will remain the same. We're taking the same cabinet. We're continuing Queensland's stability law. Yeah, and it's different now. Yeah, obviously it's not major, but, still to come out and say, we're not going to cut anything. We're going to keep the same cabinet.
Yeah, well, even right off the bat. Well, I'm just going to put this out there. The member for Bonnie, who Senator O'Connor, originally he was the Shadow Environment Minister and housing man. He's the housing minister now. David Janetsky's the treasurer as well as the energy minister as well. So, because I remember this is kind of leading in a little bit into the last topic, into nuclear, but I remember when he was on the ABC's election coverage, and I remember he was asked about nuclear because I remember David came out and said he didn't support Dutton's nuclear plan, and then he asked David, hey, look, what do you think about nuclear? And he was very avoidant, he was skirting around it. Yeah, and I know you want to talk about Dutton's nuclear power. I try to make this point. Yeah. When Stephen Miles said, we're going to build a whole bunch of state-owned servos to keep the price of fuel down. And Jared Bleach, the now Deputy Premier, said, that won't bring the cost down. Well, you look at the federal, Peter Dutton goes, we're going to build a massive nuclear power plant. And because we own that, we're going to provide cheap power to Queensland. Okay, so is a government-owned asset going to bring the price down or bring the price up? Because according to the state Liberals, your state-owned fuel brings the price. According to the federal Liberals, state-owned nuclear power brings Queensland's power prices down. So what's the story? Yeah, no, it's a very confused
and still to me throughout the entire show, but just finally needed to say.
No, that's fair. And look at that kind of it goes to the original podcast. David Janetsky was a little bit more sympathetic to the nuclear power whole plan that the federal Libs want to go for. But Sam O'Connor, the member for Body, I know. Because I've volunteered for this particular member for quite a while, and I know he's very staunchly against nuclear power.
But even David Disability, he's staunchly against nuclear power. He said, while I'm the Premier, there will not be nuclear power in Queensland. He said it. And I read this article from the ABC that if Dutton wants to go, if he gets elected, he wants to pursue building a nuclear power plant in Queensland, there's legal roadblocks because within Queensland's laws, there's a moratorium. Exactly. So that we have to have a plebiscite. But hang on, federal power trumps state power. But in the state power, there's got to be a plebiscite to happen in the first place. So are we going to have a referendum on nuclear power? A state referendum? What world do we live in where we're having the people of Queensland are having a referendum? Shuffling Queensland.
Yeah, no, it's a bit silly. And I think Stephen Miles also was going along that route as well. He was also promising a referendum on nuclear power, he wants to put it into the people's hands about what type of energy that they want to run the system.
I mean, I do believe, because I was seeing America's propositions, when you go to the polls, they leave a whole bunch of people up to do you believe in the legalization of marijuana and all these other things? I think we should go to the polls, I truly hope Australians are smart enough to be able to friggin' read ballot box. Yeah, but I really wish that with some things that we went to the ballot box of, okay, yeah, I'm voting for Albo, and you know what? I believe in this bill. I don't believe in that bill. I believe in that bill. Can't we do that? I know they do it in Italy. I know they do it in the United States. I know they do it all over the world. Maybe that's a different debate. Maybe, obviously, I don't fully understand the merits of it, the pros and cons of having propositions, but I think for some things, I'd look back at the gay marriage website.
Yeah.
Did we really need to spend regular money?
Yeah, no. We did, and it was such an overwhelming result too. It was 95, 97% of Australians voted yes for the plebiscite. And it was a thing that was hugely stretching. Because I remember Bill Shorten, he wanted to just, if he was the Prime Minister, he would just have introduced Parliament, passed it, and then bam, it would have just been done. That's it, without a sitting week. But
he spent, $130 million or something on that vote. Could we have not gone to that election between Turnbull and Bill Shorten and not, yes, that's who my local candidate is, and yes, I'm voting for or against gay marriage. Why did we just say no, they do another vote when we just had it same time as another vote?
I think partially due to that, partially the reason for that as well. So I think Malcolm Turnbull was dealing with a lot of different factions. Obviously, and that he was in, once upon a time, and then obviously that massive conservative faction was in the Liberal Party. It didn't like the fact that I was really thinking about how Turnbull get, and it's a side note, Malcolm Turnbull, has got it right. Yeah, unfortunately, he didn't do it when he was Prime Minister. That's the problem. He just bent over to his...
Sorry about that. I just saw a fan code. No, well, that's the thing. Like, I fully agree. Because, yeah, Malcolm, I'm sorry, you did bend over a little bit. But it's just, he's so much more vocal now about, like, everything. Like, he's so staunchly against, you know, the submarine, the new submarine deal. Not. He's, okay, that might be another point of disagreement. Then he's staunchly against AUKUS. He's staunchly against, you know, this whole nuclear plan, and then he's also very vocally against Donald Trump, and then like the rise of this right-wing populism and whatnot. Like he's super staunchly like against all these things now. He even has a podcast about the fight for democracy. But again, he was not like that. Should just match your turning out. Said this is what the government's going to do, but no, he just bent over. Yeah, but I think that's also partially due to the fact that you know, I remember him saying that, you know, we're not run by factions, and a little bit like unfortunately at that time, and I suppose to a certain degree now, but yeah, definitely at that time, the Liberal Party was run by factions, and even the Labor Party do it to a certain extent. Yeah, but politics, that's the nature of politics, unfortunately. Yeah, he was trying to balance the impossible. He was trying to please everyone, but at the end of the day, he didn't end up finishing his prime ministership because of it. That was the point I was trying to make a bit earlier before I got stumbled, but yeah, I think Malcolm Turnbull would have probably done better if he was the real Malcolm Turnbull. Yeah. But how do we start talking about this again? Why are we talking about state? Yeah, we're talking about state politics. I've got completely off the thing about nuclear power and stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Why do you think that Dutton would have gone out in support of nuclear power at all, given how just the overwhelming evidence in Australia anyway? This is why he's still for it. Why do you think? I think it's pretty clear. Why do you think he's still? He's trying to make a platform where he can make a wedge against Labor, and all of it. Obviously, there's the prolonging of the coal industry and the gaslight industry as well. Because to me, it's very, very clear that the Liberal Party haven't learned from their mistakes of the last election. They got wiped by their inaction on climate policy. Yeah, like if you look at Josh Frydenberg was such an influential member in his party. He was the treasurer. He was the deputy Liberal leader. And I remember because my dad and I were talking about the time, and I was like, he's like, who do you think loses? Like, you know, do you think? And he profiles. I said, oh yeah, Josh Frydenberg loses a seat. And he goes, well, he's the treasurer. I said, yeah, but the people of Australia are suburb gets elected. The people of Coolong, yeah, they decide. And they voted him out because the Liberal Party didn't deliver enough on climate change. And obviously they haven't just, you know, look themselves and go, you know what, maybe we did solar, not bad. They need something they can advocate for to appease the votes that they lost. But nuclear power doesn't do, you know, there are many for and against nuclear power, but I think I will always be against nuclear power until we decide what to do with the waste. Yep. There isn't a waste disposal system. We're putting it in the bloody ground at the moment. We're putting it in big tanks and putting it in the ground because we don't have a proper way to use it. It's just as destructive. And everyone goes, oh, it's the solution to climate change. It's just as fucking destructive as coal. Well, that's but the problem is that this is specifically in the Australian context. Like in the Australian context, nuclear would not work as we've never had that. Well, we do have one nuclear power plant that's like in Sydney, so I think, but we do not have the industry that many other areas around the world who also have nuclear power plants have. We had moratoriums in every state. We have a federal moratorium as well, so you're going to have to try and who pulled that federal moratorium in? It was John Howard. They're plotting, but you're right. But by hero, yeah, John Howard, yeah. If John Howard, you know, one of the whole figure, an elder statesman of the Liberal, it's the person who brought that in, and he obviously he didn't do it because he, you know, believed in climate change. He was very much against climate change and climate policies and whatnot. But John Howard brought that in because he thought that was the best decision for the people of Australia. And now Peter Dutton is trying to go, well, hang on, we need to fix the climate crisis, but we're not going to bring any action on renewables. We're just going to bring nuclear. But the most frustrating part about the whole debate, I think, about nuclear is that they're trying to treat it as if it's just an option. Well, we don't need all of these like green, renewable stuff. Like we need a proper debate. We need to just have the discussion about nuclear power. And unfortunately, the discussion was already had a long time ago. That discussion was long done, and the discussion is still happening now to a certain degree. With the CSIRO report recently coming out saying that like nuclear power in Australia at minimum would probably be like in 2040s we'd have the first nuclear power station, and we'd be going off small modular reactors, like a second generation technology that hasn't even been implemented in
in countries with nuclear industry. We don't that's industry, yeah, they stack their own. But that's the thing. Like a lot of people go, well, okay, look at all of these. Look at the United Kingdom. Look at Saudi Arabia. Look at all these other countries with nuclear power. And they're like, okay, that's great, but like they already had that industry decades ago. And then look at Japan. Look at South Korea. Great. They already had one decades ago. If we were going to build a nuclear power station here in Australia, that would have been decades ago. But it's not now. But the time has passed. And I understand nuclear has passed in Australia. Yeah. And to me, it's funny because it's a very good point you make. Because we don't have the industry, we can't do it for decades. You know, the Liberals were obviously they were the ones that brought AuspolChats. He was Home Affairs Minister at the time AuspolChats was brought in. He's a very strong believer in that policy. And he signed on to that pact, knowing that, you know, the nuclear submarines wouldn't be delivered for another 2 decades or so, and that another country would have to build them. Or, you know, now they're going to be built in, you know, maybe they're going to be built in West Australia and people are going to come in and, you know, we're going to start building up a defence industry and whatnot. But, you know, if you could do that policy and say that this is the best thing for Australia and it's going to take decades to deliver, why keep turning around and go with nuclear? Oh, you know, guys, it's an option. Like, yeah, because no, let's add to the renewables debate. Like, it's just, but you're not delivering realistic action. I think it's also too just it's embarrassing for them a little bit because like I don't know if this policy is starting to being like made up on the fly or because like all the people that are in advocacy for it, including Barnaby Joyce, including David Littleproud and not Bridget McKenzie, who's the Susan Lake, including this is what Dan heard, including her and Jane Him. Oh, Jane, no, I can't. Okay, this is where the full bias of the podcast comes into display. But like, it genuinely, like when I hear them talk about nuclear power, especially the new, not the new, but the shadow energy minister, who is the shadow? It's not Angus Taylor, because not Angus Taylor. He's the shadow treasurer, but Angus Taylor is the shadow treasurer. I did not know he was the shadow treasurer. But I think it's like Ted O'Brien, I think is the shadow energy minister. But long-winded point, whenever I hear them talk about it, I genuinely do not think that they believe the stuff that is coming out of their mouth, genuinely. Because at the end of the day, they've got the sites for these nuclear reactors now. Okay, that's great. But are you going to force these landowners who don't even want these power stations in there to, you know, forcibly sell their land and, you know, put a nuclear power station? And Dali goes, well, you know, we'll have those negotiations. And I think you are right, though. I think it comes to the point of they know that it's going to take decades to deliver. They don't really believe in policy, but they don't want coal to go away. So if they build all these nuclear power plants in 20, 30, 40 years' time, they can keep using coal until then and a mixture of renewable. But then it's also, too, how does that decrease the energy price? That's also the big question. Like, how does that decrease the energy prices now? Like, the government has to spend billions on building the bloody thing at the first place. And then that has to provide the power. And then in certain areas in the United States, because there was a Four Corners documentary on it, it's like there were certain areas in the United States where even when these nuclear power plants were being built and were built, the energy prices barely saw much fluctuation or change. And in some cases, they actually got worse. So, I mean, I think nuclear would be good for load shedding. Like when you look at, you know, how hot it gets in the summer and you look at, you know, portions of the grid do just fall on blackout and just go offline. Yeah. So I think in that regard, nuclear would be good. But I mean, I just come back to the point of it takes so long to build. And you know what? Maybe we will have the technology to safely dispose of it in 20 years. But no, like right now, why are we making realistic progress? You know, I'm losing my point. I don't want to say anymore. Look, can't take it away. Well, the plus two, you've got every private company on the planet, every private company in Australia anyway, that is interested in doing some form of like energy. They're not looking at nuclear at all. Yeah, I distinctly remember the moment before I left the Liberal Party that that they were having a regional debate about energy, right? And there were some people in the room who were bringing up nuclear power, and they were like, "Well, why doesn't the LNP bring up nuclear power? Because we should bring up nuclear power." And then there was this one lady who ended up speaking up and was saying, out of all the shadow cabinet meetings that they had at the time, out of all the shadow cabinet meetings with all these energy companies, with all these farmers, with all these like landowners and whatnot, she said absolutely none of them talked about nuclear once. None of them are interested in it at all. They're interested in where the money is, and the money is right now is wind and solar. Even Bunnings is going to become like a renewable, completely, fully one of renewables by 2035. You know, so look at Australia, and you just, I mean,
I'm sure it is, a legitimate issue in other countries of why renewables aren't a larger portion of the grid. But there are so many places where you could put solar and wind, hydro. And the problem with these things is, you need towns close by to do it. I'm not talking about let's cover the Simpson Desert in solar panels. Let's get people to go out and dust the sand off them so they continue.
Yeah.
Guys, you can put these facilities near major towns. They're still going to work. It's not like America where they have all these different places that are out in the middle of nowhere and they have to convince, they have to build towns around them and have to convince people to come around. It's like, I mean, look at Warwick. Warwick's a few hours away. Bloody wind farm. There are wind farms in Warwick. People live there. There are people that can live there and have jobs to maintain these facilities. It's not like we have to find a place in Australia and build a town around.
Yeah, well, even the farmers who are having these wind turbines being built on their property in Queensland anyway, I don't know if this is the same for every other state, probably slight variation, but even in Queensland anyway, if there's a wind farm being put on a farmer's property, then they get a certain percentage of money from each turbine on their property. I thought they get paid like 60 grand a year. I think it was 60 grand a year, so like the 50, 60 grand a year or something for each turbine on their property. So and they obviously see that as an opportunity for them to obviously make some income and whatnot, and also be able to use their land for something a little bit to be able to use their land for a great purpose as well, like serving, bringing power to their local community. So
to me, I just think we've spent so much time debating coal and renewables. There's so much evidence to renewables. I think the Liberal Party just need to understand that we've had the debate at peak. There are people who are against it, but for the large majority, the demand and desire is there for renewables. People want more renewables out of the grid. And people go, okay, well, a renewable grid has to be supported by non-renewables in order to keep it going when the renewables can't keep the grid going. When they run out, they can't fill the batteries. And it's like, yeah, sure. Even, in 100 years' time, they're probably assuming, we're still here. Yeah, there probably will be aspects of the grid that are probably still powered by coal and other non-renewables, like, natural gas and whatnot. But you would probably look at it where it's like, okay, now 80% of our power grids are powered by renewables and 20%, whereas now it's probably the other way around where, 70% is coal, 30% is renewable. But there will come a point in time, and I think that's what the Liberal Party need to understand. That's what the electorate wants. But, you're going against the wind, you're going against the future. Yeah. The wind's going to renewables. The grid will be powered by a majority of renewables in the future. Why delay? Why are you going against the grain? Why are you going against the inevitable? Well, they're going against the inevitable. They're also going against the teal seats that they lost. Yeah. So these have moved further to the right since that election. It's astounding to me.
Yeah. Look, and whether or not, obviously next year the election is going to be coming up as quick before you know it. Whether or not this strategy of Dutton is going to work is going to be a very, very interesting thing to see.
I don't want my hex white 20%. Come on, Albert. It's all. But yeah, I just think that,
prime ministers were knifed because of energy policy in Australia. We had Tony Abbott getting knifed for it, and then we had Matt Patel getting knifed because of the renewable, the NEG, the National Energy Guarantee. So, we had prime ministers knifed over it. I thought, after all of that stuff, I thought finally with this government anyway, it's done. The debate is over, especially after the loss of those, very safe Liberal seats to, climate 200 teal, independents. Overall, because we've talked about a lot we've talked about a lot. I think, obviously not everything. There's only so much that we could talk about in an hour, especially after an entire year of absence that we've had as well from the political space. They say a week's a long time in politics, so I think a year's an eternity. So, overall, in terms of, I guess, not everything that we've discussed, but especially on, nuclear and, where we're going to see Australia in the next 30 years in terms of energy, in terms of energy policy, as well as, Dutton's election strategy or Dutton's, strategy going forward. What do you think could be, the future for energy in this country, or at least the energy debate in this country?
Look, that is probably more of a question for you. My expertise is definitely more around foreign affairs, foreign relations, international politics. I'm not the best when it comes to public administration and public policy, but what I will say And, again, I could be way off the mark here. I think that after this election, regardless of who wins, I think the nuclear, even if Dutton wins, I do think the nuclear debate kind of just quietly goes away. It's, if he were to win, it would be, okay, we campaigned on that, but, hang on, it's going to take 20 years to build. We didn't want it anyway. Let's forget about it. We always said it was an option, or we were going to do it.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably where the energy debate in this country is going. I think, nuclear won't really be a serious or legitimate option in this country. I think the debate around how much of our grid will be powered by a proportion of both non and renewable energy. But that's what I think it'll be. I think the debate won't be, okay, should we consider nuclear as a legitimate option, but rather, how do we best power our grid with a combination of non and renewable? That's what
and also in a way that brings down the prices as well for everyone. I mean, everyone that has a solar panel on their roof will know how much their energy prices go down, because yes, they are expensive. There's a lot of solar rebates that a lot of state governments are doing nowadays to try and incentivize people to get solar panels on their roofs. But I think at the end of the day, when this whole energy debate goes, this is the first time that, an opposition has, the first time in a long time anyway, that an opposition has been able to propose something so big and, landscape changing for energy, especially, a 30-year plan or a 25, 30-year plan where it's going to take multiple governments to try and get it solved. Because Kevin Rudd, even when he was in government with the NBN, obviously, he had a big plan for it and, it was a gigabit internet to everyone. And obviously that kind of changed when Malcolm Turnbull, when Tony Abbott came into government, and then Malcolm Dixon to carbon and came. Yeah, so even just those changes in copper is what I was trying to say. Yeah, copper is like copper wiring instead of fiber to the node and all that. But I think even just those changes between governments, and how they switched up the policy, even though the policy was still the same, like the same principle to bring high-speed internet to everyone in Australia, it still, had those changes later. Like, it's the implementation same, but the implementation is just wildly. So it's even if Dutton, won the next election and then bam, okay, we're going to put this plan into renewables. Okay, what happens when Labor gets elected in like a term later or 2 terms later? And then what's going to happen when it gets back to Liberal Party hands later on? So, because there could be there could be so many different changes in government from now until 2040. So it's in terms of overall implementation, I think it'd just be a nightmare to try and, unless you have bipartisan support from both ends of the House, that's the only way that I can see such a massive long-term thing being implemented in a not messy way like the NBN was. But unless you get that bipartisan support, which is never going to happen, then I don't think that's going to be changing anytime soon. But yeah, I think that's everything here for the... I think so. Well, AuspolChat, when I checked this afternoon, Labor had ran 33 bills to the Senate. They sure have a lot to talk about next week. I was about to say, because again, that's another thing too. 32 bills. That's absolutely insane. I don't think anyone's done that before. I don't think any other governments. We can let that have a few in his time when he was in caretaker mode. We'll see. Yeah. We'll see. But I think you're right. We've got heaps to talk about. It's all massive politics. We still have time in politics. So I think especially this time, it's going to be an eternity. So we'll think that hopefully it's not going to be another year-long break from the year. So you have to wait till now. But thank you all so much for tuning in. Hope you've all had a good time listening to our ramblings, especially about Malcolm tonight. Good time rambling. I hope that we've time listening. Yes, our 10 people, our loyal 10 people. We'll see you guys next week. But until then, hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. And Merry Christmas in case you don't hear from us for another 6 months. Absolutely. And a Happy New Year. Jack, good. Let's do it. Let's do it.